Today I'm going to talk about an ordinary man like you and us. I call him an ordinary man who made a dramatic comeback. There's a different way of express this in Korean, but I kind of translate it this way so that it makes sense. Basically, Isaac, he has no special points about his life compared to other characters in the Bible, it seems like. Only main thing that we know about it is that his father tried to sacrifice him. And we talk about that he was very obedient to his father and went along with that. But rest of his life is very typical, like us. But today's story kind of summarizes his life after the death of his father Abraham. And there's a certain things that we notice, something to do with the well. So I want to show you a video clip. It is the announcement of the sportscast is done in Korean. So you don't understand what he says, but you can watch their fight, okay? So Mr. Hong is a Korean fighter, and Karaskia is a Panama boxer.
계속해서 접근자를 시도하고 있는 카라스키아 물러서주는 홍수환 완투 치는 카라스키아 랩트 치는 홍수환 우리를 살짝 대봤던 홍수환 완투 치는 카라스키아 그러나 완투 치면서 나오는 홍수환입니다. 머리를 맞겠습니다. 라이트 치는 홍수환 그러나 받아치는 카라스키아 지금 맞고 치는데요. 홍수환 선수가요. 그 카라스키아가 굉장히 하드 펀치 아닙니까? 강 펀치 주는데 아무거나 홍수환 랩트와 맞고 다운이 됐습니다. 이에서 살펴봤던 홍수환 선수 다시 일어났습니다. 네, 2회전 나섰습니다. 홍수가 다운되었습니다. 가라스키가 다운되었습니다. 가라스키가 선수가 다운되었습니다. 주심 쟁여진 선수의 다운을 하고 있습니다. 이메이서가 3번 다운되었던 홍수가 선수. 그러나 우리가 다운되었습니다.
This is one historical moment in actually for this Korean fighter, and it became a legend basically because of this fight. This happened in 1977, and he became the world champion with this for his level. What is this called? It's a toy, lollipolly. I mean, I learned this word this week. I didn't know what you call it in English, so I searched for it. As you see, the bottom of this toy is heavier and round, and so you're trying to make it tip over, it won't, because it will keep standing out. It's a toy, but it kind of it shows you cannot never defeat it to remain fall. It will come up and this kind of life and this kind of the boxing title match here it kind of shows what it is. Isaac, his life, that story that we're going to cover today's passage, it reminds me of this. So today's keyword for my sermon is lollipolly, basically. Remember that. So let's take turn read these passages and then dive into the story. Let's all together read together. Let's begin. Isaac planted crops in that land, and the same year reaped 100-fold because the Lord blessed him. The man became rich, and his wealth continued to grow until he became very wealthy. He had so many flocks and herds and servants that the Philistines envied him. So all the wells that his father's servant had dug in the time of his father Abraham, the Philistines stopped up and filled them with earth. Then Abimelech said to Isaac, "Move away from us. You have become too powerful for us." So Isaac moved away from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar, where he settled. Isaac reopened the wells that had been dug in this time of his father Abraham, which the Philistine had stopped up after Abraham died. And he gave them the same names his father had given them. Isaac's servants dug in the valley and discovered as well of fresh water there. But the herders of Gerar quarreled with those of Isaac and said, "The water is ours." So he named the well Ashak, because they disputed with him. Then they dug another well, but they quarreled over that one also. So he named it Shinnah. He moved on from there and dug another well, and no one quarreled over it. He named it Rehoboth, saying, "Now the Lord has given us room, and we will flourish in the land." From there he went up to Beersheba. That night the Lord appeared to him and said, "I am the God of your father Abraham. Do not be afraid, for I am with you. I will bless you and will increase the number of your descendants for the sake of my servant Abraham." Isaac built an altar there and called on the name of the Lord. There he pitched his tent, and there his servant dug a well. Amen. After the death of his father Abraham, Abraham passed away at the age of 175. So Isaac was about 75 because his father had him at the age of 100. He settled in the same region of the area, the place of where he met his wife, Rebecca. He was doing well. He lived an ordinary life, seems like. But as you know, the life, there's always something come along your way. We call famine. In those days, famine probably was quite often than we think. Famine came, and in everybody's life, even though it seems very ordinary, these famine come and go. And so that's what happened to Isaac when he was settled and he was living a very ordinary life. This famine came. One thing about this famine was different than what it was for his father Abraham. It was probably same scale level of famine, but actually how Abraham responded versus how Isaac responded to it. Abraham, we know he went down to where? Egypt, right? But what happened was Isaac was he was not a proactive owning his own life, it seems like. He was not making a decision quickly enough what to do. What do you call that kind of, he was kind of indecisive or procrastinating, making decision to go somewhere, make the move. Well, in a way, that was quite different than his wife, his father, because it gave the time for God to step in. In the time of trouble, most of the time, God's people experience the presence of God. In Isaac, that's what happened to him. God came to him. And God told him, do not go down to Egypt, just like your father did. Don't do that. Remain in this land of Canaan, because I have gave you this land to you and the descendants to come. I will be with you. Do not be afraid. Isaac believed when he heard this promise. Well, you have to understand, this is the same covenant that was given to his father. But for Isaac, this is the first time he heard personally from God. It was a new covenant for him. And so when God came in his troubled time, he believed and he obeyed. And instead of going down to Egypt, where everybody seems like traveling down in famine time, he decided to go Philistine land, Gerar they call. It's Gentile land. The land of Canaan, there's more than 11, 12 tribes occupy in that time. So he went instead of going to Egypt, so he obeyed. It seems like when he arrived there, he had a fear in him because he had so beautiful wife. He was worried that the people in Philistine, they would kill him in order to get her. So he was fearful of that, so he told his wife Rebecca to lie about their relationship. Instead of husband and wife, he told her to say, we are sisters and brothers. So it seems like that's what they did. They got by lying to the people of Gerar, saying, hey, we are brothers and sisters. And their life go as ordinary life. But what happened was actually the Abimelech, the king of the Philistine land, one day was opening the window and watch over, and they saw Isaac and Rebecca was making out, literally. It wasn't something that it wasn't sister and brother would do. Hugging and kissing probably, right? So he knew right away they are not brothers and sisters. So he called Isaac into palace and said, you lied to me. And so rebuked him, saying, why would you do that? You set us up for my people to fall in a crime, an evil act, if this was going on. But somehow this king Abimelech was quite wise man and very practical. Instead of punishing him, he said, well, now we know. So what he did was he declared law to his citizens, saying, if anyone harm Isaac and his wife, you will be persecuted. It means you will be dead. So in a way, in a fearful situation where Isaac was very fearful of the people of Philistines, and he lied to the people, but that circumstance now overturned, and now the law gave them the full protection for them to settle there. That's literally a grace of God as he has promised, right? If you obey me, that I will be with you and protect you. That's what happens. So as you can see, that is the first thing that we see as evidences of what God's guidance do for life of Isaac. When we are in trouble, when we faces a moment of fear that grasps us, that maybe it's better for us to wait and listen to God and listen to His guidance instead of using our own knowledge and wisdom and skills to make quick decisions. And so for Isaac, for him being ordinary, it was a grace of God. He led him to go to Philistine and settles. So that's the first lesson. Well, as he was settled there, actually quite interesting happened. Now he has a full protection from the king. And every time he planted the crops, he harvested 100-fold. 100-fold, even today's farmers' technology, you don't make 100-fold harvest. And so what 100-fold mean is that actually his harvesting was resulted by the grace of God. With the help of God, everything he was doing was successful. And he became a wealthy man in the land. So quick, so much, that some kind of problem rise. With God's help, he became a what do you call the billionaire in today's term? Billionaire in today's term. Used to be millionaire, but now it's a billionaire. Now, and so he was so known to all the people of the land, right? What happened was the people in Philistine, they were envy of him, his status, right? And so the trouble come when you're most successful, when you're so powerful. And that's what happened to Isaac. When he became so rich and wealthy, that's the problem came. What happened was the Philistines, they filled the wells of Isaac with the dirt, basically. In those days, well represents the lifeline. Without water, you can't do anything. Right? So they dug, they plugged all the wells, and then the king came to Isaac and said, because you have multiplied so quickly, we don't want you here. Get out of here. I mean, king literally chased him out. Can you imagine US government come to you and kick you out in that setting? How devastating. Especially like when you made. That's what happened to Isaac. And so he literally got chased away from the city of Gerar, and he moved to the valley of Gerar, means mountainside. So you can see out of main town that he now kicked out to the mountainside. So he moved on, but what he did was he remembered his father had a well outside the desert. So he went there and he redug the well out. And lucky enough, the well had the water still. And so they settled there. And it seems like they live okay, ordinary life. Life goes on now. They tended the herds and ships and everything. But the people of the Gerar, they heard Isaac had water and well. They came and then said, this is our well, our water. Get out of this land again. So they got kicked out again. So Isaac again had to move and search for the new well. I mean, the housing is the technology that many people, they think it's how they search for the water on the ground. It's the Y-shaped branch of wood. You hold two hands and there's a tip pointing like this. You walk around like this. And then when there's a water line on the ground, the dowsing, the tip of the wood branch will fall or shoot up. And that's how they find, in old day, I bet that's what they did, right? And even modern day, they use that. Yeah. What it tells us is finding water on the ground is not an easy task, even modern time. I know we did helping people to finding well in Uganda and Tanzania. I know it takes about $100,000 to find good well, even modern days. So how hard it is to find well in a mountainside is a task that is impossible. But lucky enough for Isaac, every time he dug, water came. Yeah. So that's what happened. He dug the ground and then he found the well again. And he settles and he moves on. But again, third time, the Philistine came and then they said, this is our land. Get out. So he got kicked out third time. And finally he arrived in one of the settings. There he did the same thing again. He dug the ground again. He found the well and water came out. This time, fourth time, the Philistines, they didn't come. So he said, now we can settle here and live happily ever after. Literally, that's what Isaac said. But what happened was, actually, if you read the passage, suddenly he moved to new places. And actually, the Bible doesn't tell us why. So I meditated on it and I said, why? Why would anybody move if everything is okay? So I thought myself, what Isaac was doing was he was kicked out of the village, the city, to the mountain, kicked out several times. And then finally he got kicked out, but the Philistine didn't even care for him to be where he was at. It was the edge of the mountain where there was nobody. The land that it is not habitable. And so soon after, even they had a well, even Isaac had a well. It wasn't a place for him to settle there. So he had to move. That's my guess, after I did the meditation on this. So finally he got to the place called Beersheba. It's a place his father also lived there, Beersheba. And he was trying to look for the water. But actually suddenly the author of this book, Genesis, Moses, he stopped talking about what happened to Isaac, how he's moving around. He suddenly talked about a new story, saying Abimelech, the king of Philistine, came to Isaac and pleaded to have a peace treaty. Peace treaty. Even in modern day, the person or the side that asks for the peace treaty with somebody is always that his opponent is the weaker opponent. It's those weak side asked to have the peace treaty so that they are protected. So what happened is the king of a Philistine is asking Isaac to sign the peace treaty with him. What does that tell us?
Isaac is in a dominant position.
That is right. Now Isaac, some reason, now he is settled in Beersheba and he became wealthiest and the strongest among many tribes around. To the point where Philistine was fearful of what he might do to them. So he came and said, sign this. Sign this. So even the Bible really doesn't say what happened to Isaac, how he became wealthiest. We know he became the strongest patriarch of all. And so he did. But one voice that you need to hear what Abimelech is saying as he was asking. He said, because we have watched you, your God Jehovah is with you, that you have been gadel, which means prosperous and multiply, and that you became the wealthiest, that we are asking you to sign this treaty. This Gentile king utters out the name of Jehovah, Yahweh, God of Israel, God of Isaac, and is testifying that God is with you, therefore you have been prosperous. Since we have watched this, well, they actually did watch it from the beginning. How the stranger of the land came into their land and multiplied to the point that they were threatened by their wealth. So they kicked them out to the mountainside. But every time they found the well, and every time they settle, and then all the way, and finally at the Beersheba, they go to the point that every tribe will fear of him. You see, when things are happening in life of the people of God, grace of God is always with us. Amen? Grace God is always with us. But have we noticed with the life of Isaac, what was also with him? Trouble. Trouble. You see, I mean, it would be our dream if God's grace is with us, that our life become troubleless. Right? That would be the perfect condition that we desire. But what does Isaac's life show? Where there's more grace of God, it seems there's more trouble in life. What an irony. And so our prayer must be not to eliminate the troubles in our lives, because it never will come true where I see it. Because those troubles and the worries and fear and then failure come because we have to deal with the people around, everybody around. And all the problems they are caused by the people around. Just like Isaac was troubled with the Philistines. And finally, at the fourth point, actually, it wasn't the people. It was the circumstances, environment itself. He couldn't endure it. So he had to move. So what it teaches us that is the trouble come always some reasons to our life. It's almost like the seasons. But it is something that reminds us to remember God's grace. You see, winter time, we desire to see the spring and summer come. You see, the 4 seasons, there's the beauty of it. In life, the troubles that we have to endure it's almost like it's something reminds us there is a better day. There's a better things for us. And Isaac, he endured and he faithfully lived his life without giving up. He continued to dig the well. Every places he go, and God's grace was there. But of course, the trouble of life always were there. Yeah. My God that I believe is the similar kind of God that Isaac experienced. Just because I believe in God, just because I have faith in God, it doesn't mean my life has become trouble-free. And many aspects of it, I even experienced more harsh life circumstances, more troubles. But what I experience is that God gives stronger strengths to overcome and endure. And it is the experience that God wants us. Because we Christians, the faith that we hold, we do not live a life of this, the prosperous life of this world. That's not the goal of it. Actually, our life goal is to be in eternal life, the kingdom of God. And that is why we need to remember this principle. God's grace always entails 2 purposes. First, to reveal God's power to the participants, like us, we live this life. The reason we are facing the trouble is so that through this opportunity, we experience God's power. Through this trouble, we learn to endure and be strengthened through the presence of God. That's one purpose. But the other one is actually, that's the ultimate purpose of this trouble, is that to reveal God's glory to those who witnesses it. It's all those who doesn't claim God's presence. It's those who doesn't know God. They have to see that God truly do exist. Glory of God. And our purpose of our life to become a millionaire, or successful in life is not for us to satisfy our own self, but to glorify God. Not only your self-achievement, but also by those people who witnesses you. And those who witnesses you knowing that you have a God. Just like King Abimelech said, because your God, Jehovah, was with you, that we have witnessed that you have been multiplied. The impossible became possible because you believe in God. 100-fold produce. The well you dug, even in the mountainous area, water came out. We have witnessed you. And you moved to finally this place. And now you have grown to be a powerful tribe. We know it's because you have a God in you, Jehovah. Isaac's life, I think it is very similar to our life. He was an ordinary man. We are ordinary people. We have different jobs, we have different things we do, and we have many different worries in our life. We struggle. We live in an impossibility, if you will think about it, because nothing we wish maybe is struggle to come to us. And somehow all those lusts have lost on its way to us. It feels like. But grace of God remains faithful to us. As long as we hold faith in Him, He will always present Himself to us in our most troubled time. He will speak to us and He will remind us His covenant. Don't be fearful of the circumstances. I'm with you, and I guarantee you that my covenant will be fulfilled. Yeah. If we only live this life to become wealthy, if only live this life for us to live successful, then this life is vanity. Because you and I at the end will die and nothing we're going to grab in our hands and take it with us. It's empty-handed. If that's the only thing that we're after, it's truly empty-handed at the end. So we know that's not what it is. It's the process of allowing others who witnesses us to be able to glorify God because they see the display of glory of God's presence and power through us. Can you imagine how does this unfaithful non-believers get to see that the faith that we hold in God is real? It has to be evident in our lives. How can it be? By faithfully live according to His words and we prosper. And so I believe we Christians must prosper. We should still remain healthy, wealthy, happy with these purposes. Not to satisfy and quench away our own desire, but also to meet His desire, to spread His glory to the uttermost part of the world. And so Isaac have lived his life under the grace of God. And this is a very simple story, but actually this is 25 years of his life in Philistine land. Can you imagine, like, you get kicked out every time you make it? And finally, after 25 years, that he settles. But does it? That's the end of his life? And it's forever actually in his life say, he's successful? I don't think so. He continued to struggle with different problems and different worries, I believe. And same for us, we're going to go through the same. Just because we have faith in God, it doesn't mean we will have a trouble-free life, unfortunately. But I can guarantee you, as long as you be faithful to God, this faithful God will give you the strength, the wisdom, and insights and understanding that you can embrace and endure the situations that you face. And that, for sure, God's promise to us. So, be encouraged. Be courageous in facing the world, dealing with the problems. Let God give you the wisdom. Let God give you the insight and understanding to your problem. And He will be the solution to the problems that you may face. Let's pray.